You are now experiencing the Nectar of Time.
I had a guy in my business once in time, and he had the worst things happen to him all the time. Always just had the worst luck, I guess you could call it, right? And one day he came into work and he looked, I just thought I'd give him a bit of a compliment. He had, cried, and his shirt looked really crisp and he had a tie on. And I said, "Well, Isaac, you look great today." He goes, "I didn't fucking do it for you, did I? I was his fucking boss," and that's what he said to me, but still he did. "I didn't fucking do it for you, I did it for myself." I loved that. I mean, I really loved it. He got up in the morning, ironed his shirt, made himself look great for him and not for anybody else. If anybody else thought it was great, that's a bonus, fantastic. But I loved that, and that to me was authenticity from that young guy in my business who just said, "I didn't fucking do it for you, Colin, I did it for myself."
We are right over the San Andreas fault, and experts on finance say that it is surely going to crumble. And if we treat each other this badly in a time of prosperity on borrowed money, how are we going to treat each other when the trouble comes? And I don't say the trouble's coming. The people who spoke this morning said. Now, Weimar was mentioned once. And I think you know what Weimar was the prelude to. And if the excrement is going to hit the air conditioning, the Nazi thing will start here. And that's what we're meeting about, is how the hell are we going to fight that? Is we can't stop this damn fool depression that's going to come along now. Is to hear the experts talk, it was like the mobilization for World War I. Is once the mobilization began, there was no stopping it. There was no speech you could give. There is no speech you can give now to prevent this collapse.
If you could create a personality for yourself, a new one, a fresh one, what attributes would you choose for yourself? What recipe would you concoct? Perhaps you might add courageousness, decrease fear, subdue pain, and inject a heavy dose of unconditional kindness. See, that might sound good, but it certainly does not sound real. Just describing a person as such alludes to a lofty or even saintly individual, someone biblical, someone of myth. But as a mortal, it's as manufactured as it gets, and candidly, quite boring. Asymmetry is magical. It's like Japanese kintsugi pottery, repairing broken pieces of ceramic with gold. As Kipling put it, to watch the things you gave your life to broken, and then build them up with worn-out tools. Today's episode is about authenticity. That is to say, today's episode is about imperfections, the true hallmarks of beauty. These blemishes are insignia of the sublime. For the next hour or so, forget about the ideals you hold so dear. Break the paradigm and sit with the raw parts of yourself as we explore the power of real authenticity. No optimizations, no calibrations, just the art of being yourself. We are fortunate enough to have Colin Gerrard with us today. Colin is an entrepreneur, film producer, and musical artist. He earned his stripes building companies around the world, learning and perfecting the art of sales and communication, something critical to his success. Colin is a black belt communicator and says exactly what's on his mind, whether you like it or not. This episode has a different flavor than usual, but that's precisely the beauty of the Nectar of Time. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Nectar of Time, Colin.
Cheers.
Cheers. Colin, thanks for coming on my show.
Pleasure.
I want to talk about a few different things today, but what's on your mind?
What's on my mind? probably more than anything at the moment is the same thing on everybody's mind is which way is the world going at the moment. I'm sure that I've heard it and seen it in past movies where they said, oh, this generation's the worst and that one's the worst and this one's the worst. I just think the sort of generation that's coming along these days has got this mentality of entitlement and an attitude that they should be deserving of something that they haven't earned. And we all got brought up a different way. I mean, I was brought up, working class in the sense that, you want something, go and get it. And funny thing for me is that the best two pieces of advice I ever got was from my grandfather. He said it to me just before he passed away, because my father passed away when I was 2, so he sort of looked after me until I was about 9. And he just, for one day, we'd gone out for a walk or something one day, and he just stopped out of nowhere and he said 2 things. He said, I'm going to tell you 2 things, boy. And he said, the first one was, don't ever grow old. And the second one was, don't wait for anything because it's not coming. And I never realized that sort of stuff. It sort of infuses into you and maybe it becomes a part of you, maybe it doesn't, But I mean, years later when I started running a business, I realized that was the toppermost, the poppermost when it comes to the right mentality. Don't wait for anything because it's not coming. And, I think a lot of it these days, there is this kind of mentality, and I talk to a lot of people that they expect things. They've done nothing to earn it. They've done nothing to create it. There's a big, throughout Europe right now, it's very, very big at the moment, the UK also, and countries like Sweden and things like that. They've let in a lot of migrants over the years. They did the right thing. That was bringing people, allowing people to have a better life. The problem is that if you don't integrate people well, and if you don't work with them to become part of your society, then they become against that society. And this is what's happening at the moment. People are bringing their mentality, their mores, their attitudes to somebody else's country with different mores, different attitudes, different mentalities, and they're clashing really badly. And then there's this whole group of people that are sitting around sort of, fanning the fire, people that have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, the best part is all the protests right now, when they're sitting there actually interview people, they haven't got a fucking clue what they're talking about. I mean, they really don't fucking know at all. This is what's gone on. It's all about the feelings of somebody and not about the facts. You can always bring your feelings into something once you know the facts. But nobody cares about the facts. It's only about their emotions and their feelings that they're upset about, or upset on behalf of somebody else that isn't upset.
Right. So there's a few interesting ideas here. One is separating the facts from the feelings, and the feelings are not, they do not magically crystallize into hard evidence, into hard fact, into hard reality. Just because you feel a certain way doesn't make it so. And it's beautiful to project your feelings in art and to make that known. Of course, there's, Dante is known, Dante Alighieri from Florence, he's known for his Beatrice. Right. Beatrice is this beautiful woman, his muse, and he never even met the girl. No. He met her once, but they never got together. Now, if Dante had not written La Vita Nuovo, which was his first book, and if he had not gone into the Divine Comedy and written those, which were both about Beatrice, and Beatrice had clear roles in both of those stories, right? What would he have done if he wanted to take those feelings? Who knows what he would have done to some, I don't know, like the whole incel movement, for example. Oh, why doesn't this woman love me back? But his turning reality, him controlling reality, was not about telling other people why he's the victim, why he can't be with this woman. Right. It was him sharing a piece of his heart and saying, well, I'm not in charge of destiny. That's for greater powers than I am. But what I can do is share with the world my love, my pain.
But the biggest problem is most legends are built on lies. It's somebody's fantasy of themselves that they promulgate and they put up there and get people to get excited about who they are. But the fact is, though, is that's what the problem is more than anything. People are building their futures on lies and not on actual understanding of what the truth truly is in a situation, and we get a lot of this. I mean, I'm not a religious person, that's all, but at the end of the day, I mean, these are books that were written through what we commonly call in the UK Chinese whispers, or the telephone game. You know, when you're a kid at school, somebody whispers in one kid's ear, they go around the circle. By the time they get to the last child, it's completely different from what the first child heard. But for me, that's what it is. I mean, most of these books were written years, sometimes centuries after the person that supposedly had the vision or whatever it is died. You know, it wasn't around, and some of the people were ignorant and illiterate. How is that possible that you can actually put that into something where people are supposed to believe in that and are supposed to live their lives around it?
Right. I think in many cases we're talking about a lot of dogmatic stories here that cause people to misbehave in the current times, is sort of what you're referencing.
Yeah, but I'm referencing it all. I mean, you can pinpoint any religion you want and find fault in it, or find positives in it too.
Right.
I mean, not all the Bible is bad, but if I definitely want to have an interesting evening of sex and violence, I'll read the Bible. You know, a lot of these books, you know, they have some great things in them, and that's fantastic. But you got to really dig deep to find, as they used to say, diamonds aren't on top of the ground. You've got to dig down deep for them. And there's some great words in all the books. Quran, doesn't matter, the Torah, the Bible, Buddhism, there's some great stuff in there. But the fact is, it gets twisted by human beings, and it always does. And particularly, like it or not, men. You know, men will find ways to twist something to make sure it sits in with what they're after and what they want. Yeah, for ego, yeah.
For power?
Probably ego, power, you know. I mean, you know, some of the biggest hypocrisies I've ever seen come from religion, you know, but at the end of the day, it's not all bad. I just, for me, when it comes to religion, I try to pick out the good bits, or the bits that actually speak to me to a certain level by saying that's a good thing, or that's a good way to live your life, or that's a good way to maybe understand your life better, right. You know, or give you a little bit of comfort if that's what you're after. Because, I mean, most things by human beings are made up at some point, you know, or created at some point. Listen, we thought the earth was flat for a long time. We thought that I can't remember all the ones, but I think the sun was supposed to go around the earth or something, and all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah. I mean, one of the most incredible human beings ever. These are the people that aren't talked about these days. They're talking about people like, you know, influencers and stuff like that. These people that have absolutely no weight when it comes to actually giving you any information about, except to how to put more Botox in your face and how to make yourself look, you know, 25 years younger. At the end of the day, the people that really mean something in this world are people like Isaac Newton. I mean, do you know this guy did stuff like the gravity, all these, developed calculus and all stuff, all before the age of 26. Yeah. Einstein, all his theories all came before the age of 26 also. Yeah, that's right. You know, but these days, the people, I mean, I did a film about almost 10 years ago now called I Know You. And we basically invented a character. And this character was invented, walked through the streets of Italy, stuff like that, and we made him famous. And it was incredible what we got away with. We created a famous guy out of nothing, right? But this is what people rely on. And the reason the idea for the movie came from an article that was in the Daily Mail in 2010. And it was asking school kids between 14 and 17. And they had a 25-year difference, or a 25-year difference in the gap, right? So 25 years before that, there was, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, and that's, by the way, I never hear that anymore. When I was a little kid, all the time people come and say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never hear that at all anymore. So they asked all these kids, and they say, you know, 25 years before that time, you know, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor, a solicitor, a lawyer, whatever. You know, the fire brigade, the police, you know, a teacher. There were aspirations to vocations that were available. They asked different children in 2010, between 14 and 17, what do you want to be when you grow up? 48% of the kids that they asked said, I want to be famous. So the next question was, what do you want to be famous at? I don't care. I just want to be famous. Right. And that's what it's got to.
And that was before TikTok, where now it's even easier to be quote unquote famous when the fame is not, the fame is so temporary.
Well, I got a bit of grief at the gym the other day in London. I was at the gym, and this guy was trying to film himself in his meager muscles and whatever else he didn't have really going for himself. And I happened to do the sin of walking past his camera. He says, "Oh man, what are you doing? You're in front of me." I said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" There's a fucking gym say, I won't tell you his name, but there's a gym say, you know, so-and-so's gym. I said, it's available for everybody. I said, if you want to go do that shit, go do it at home.
Yeah.
I'm just here to work out. But it's if I don't get that little bit of attention every day, if I don't get those people giving me thumbs up, if I don't get hearts on that, I'm not validated as a human being. And that's what it feels like more than anything to me these days. People don't feel they're validated as a human being or as a person or someone that's got something to say unless they can use either somebody else's words or somebody else's situation that isn't their own.
So all of this is setting a beautiful foundation for what I wanted to discuss today, which is the topic of authenticity, or the lack of authenticity, which is endemic in modern culture.
Right.
Right. There are a host of groups and people and communities and books and thought leaders around the subject of authenticity. However, you know as well as I that the vast majority of the people involved in these groups, the people involved in quote unquote self-awareness, the people involved in reading these books that are addicted, obsessed with the learning about themselves through books, through courses, through seminars, these people are at fault almost at a higher degree than everyone else in society, because all they end up doing is adding one veneer to the next veneer, adding one layer of masquerading to the next layer of masquerading. These people are so inauthentic, I find, yet they project authenticity. They say, I am authentic, right? I just noticed this with groups online, with groups in person. I've dabbled here and there just to see. They could be men's groups, women's groups, this group, that group. And the more stringent the group is, the more fake it is. And I'll give you an example. An example would be, as you go up any hierarchy in any organization with respect to belief, religion, philosophy, whatever it is, there are more rules associated. You have to hit this checklist and that checklist and that checklist, and then you get to that level, and then you get to that level. But I find the people that you meet at the highest levels are sometimes the most out of touch with who they are, because they're hell-bent on keeping up appearances to reach the next level. Now, I'm speaking sort of in a bit of an abstraction in order to cover all bases here, in order to cover everyone. And what you end up getting with these hierarchies is you end up getting a very, very sophisticated fake person, but not an authentic person, like politicians, for example. You go up and up and up, you create bigger and bigger lies, and you start believing those lies, so it comes off as maybe authentic to the untrained eye.
Well,
but to people like you, you can see right through it.
But it's almost like a mental Ponzi scheme.
That's exactly it.
It's a mental Ponzi scheme, and I find that quite fascinating sometimes when people will buy into just about anything that they hope, and I'm not using the word yes or no or it could or you can or you will. I'm saying they hope or they pray that that's going to get them to some other sort of level in life. But the fact is, it's just about grafting and hard work that gets you somewhere. And we were always taught that as kids. You want something, go and get it.
And what's hard work?
Yeah, but that's the thing. What's their mentality of hard work? Well, the mentality of hard work from some guy that comes from, let's say, India and comes to Canada, and he comes from nothing and zero. I haven't seen any Indian guys sitting on a street corner begging here. Because when you come from something that's really a lot worse or fathomably worse than what you're used to, you look at something like this and go, wow, what an opportunity. I can actually work. I'll actually do something every day. I actually have an opportunity to grow as a person, not nothing. And that's why immigrants, when they come to a lot of countries, know how to take advantage of things. And they take advantage of things by saying, this is an opportunity. I can't waste this because I'll never have this opportunity where I came from. But they're not looking at that these days. Now it's getting to the second generation of those people that came here, and they're starting to say, yeah, but I want all of that too, but I don't want to do anything for it. And it's also the fault of the parents sometimes. A lot of parents sometimes, when they had nothing, they'll give, and they get something, they try to give as much as possible to their children because they feel it's the right thing to do. But sometimes it's the wrong thing to do because those children don't know anything about earning and what they need to do to earn something in life.
And so bringing that back to the self, what does that hard work look like to know yourself?
Well, the thing is that, they used to always say, I remember reading something one time years ago about Bill Gates and Paul Allen. And when they started Microsoft, they didn't invent the original program DOS. They bought it from some fella for $600. And I'm sure he felt pretty strong about himself, got a little bit of money for software in my pocket there. No one's ever going to do that. What a pair of wankers these two are, my God. And they took DOS, turned it into Windows and turned it into the sex. And when also Bill Gates, whether you like him or not, he was that guy running around telling everybody, I'm going to be in every computer in the world. Yeah, of course you are, Bill. Yeah, tell us another long story, mate. But he was, at one point, 91% of computers, I think, in the world had something to do with Windows on them. But the fact is, though, it wasn't about the idea, it was what was behind the idea that made it successful. And that's what I call hard work. That's the difference. The difference is not being able to come up with some great idea. We all come up with great ideas. You ever sat there and watching something on telly, and on the television some new product comes along and go, I fucking thought of that fucking 10 fucking years ago. Yeah, but what the fuck did you do about it? Mm-hmm. And that's what it is today. That's the mentality. I'll wait, I'll see what comes along and then be able to jump on that train and do something for nothing. And that's not what gets you where you want to. And then you get to this point, of course, down the line that you feel that you've cheated yourself or you've been cheated or you try to find someone else to blame it on, But I only know a few little things. I mean, the things I got taught in quote unquote business over the years was, and luckily a guy that was sort of kind of a mentor of mine, he said to me, whatever you do, don't fucking lie, Colin. Just don't fucking lie because you'll get caught at some point.
To others
or
to
anybody.
yourself?
To yourself, to others, to anybody. Just keep it as real as possible. You don't have to be, the banner or the poster boy for honesty in the world. It's not the point about it. It's the point about when you're putting something out for somebody to look at, you're putting something out for somebody to be involved in. Make sure you tell them exactly what's going to happen. Sometimes when I would do interviews with people, I would say to them, this is what I'm after. This. And then I'd ask the interviewee, what are you after? Mm-hmm. I have to know something about that guy to decide whether that person is maybe too ambitious for me,
right?
Or maybe not ambitious enough or whatever in that area. And I need to be able to ascertain that by finding out something about that person. But these two little things, that thing I learned from my grandfather, the other things in business that I learned was, one of my favorite things ever was 50% of success is what you do right. And the other 50% is where you stop from going wrong. It's just a simple little thing. And the other one was most things are 99% attitude and 1% ability. Mm-hmm. I mean, as incredibly as intelligent and with forethought and greatness as Isaac Newton maybe was, he still at some point had to garner what the idea is and then put the work and the effort and the time. Right. I mean, he couldn't figure out a problem. This is what's incredible. He couldn't figure out some sort of problem, went away and invented calculus. Yeah. I mean, instead of crying about it and saying, I have a problem, I'm never going to figure out, the universe is not going to happen for me. He said, well, fuck it, I better do something about it.
Right.
He went away in another room. I don't know how the fuck he did it, but he went away and invented calculus.
So real work is involved in making yourself the right person, not lying to yourself, not lying to others.
Okay, so I'm gonna interrupt you for 1 second there. I did a little experiment one time in my business. These guys were coming to me talking about what's that geezer's name again? The guy that sort of invented himself. I've forgotten his name now. He was really big on television ever at one point. Big tall fella, motivational speaker.
Tony Robbins?
Tony Robbins, that's it, right. So this guy was coming to me telling me, Tony Robbins is the bee's knees, is amazing. You've got to read his book. It's incredible. It's changed my life. Who was still doing shit when he was doing sales, but still he was telling me how this had changed his life. I went, fantastic, all right.
That's a key point. Yes. He was still doing shit while doing sales, yet his life was changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the thing is that people don't realize that the reason why that sort of 1% of the world is more successful than, and it depends on what your level of success is. I mean, one of the reasons why I love Italians, they have an expression called bella figura. And in Italy, it's just about family, friends, food, life.
What does that translate to?
Bella figura is like more like a kind of a happy life, a good life or our life or whatever like that. And what's great about it is that it's just kind of and the exact words don't actually translate to what exactly it is, but there's a certain mentality there about their way of life, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a nice way of life, and that's you can have the ambition to have a great family. You can have the ambition to have, or go to a great restaurant that weekend or whatever. Those are ambitions that are also important too. It doesn't have to be the ambition to become a billionaire or a millionaire or whatever the fuck you want to have, down the line. But so the experiment that I did in the business at the time, I said, okay, well, let me find out. I went to the shops and I went to the self-help section and I bought 5 books, just random. One was Tony Robbins. That was the main one. And then I put 4 other ones. I won't tell you who they were. It doesn't matter. And I did a little experiment. I got most of my people together in that office, right? And we sat down one night and we started reading. I gave the 5 books out to 5 different people. And I asked them to start reading them. And then we would switch the books with everybody and different people would read the different books and different things. We actually found out that these 5 books had basically the same fucking information in every fucking book. It's called the realization that if you actually wake up in the fucking morning, believe the fact that the world doesn't revolve around you, but you have to create a spot in the world for yourself, then you'll do great. At some point, you'll do great. It's like saying to some poor fella, you say to a geezer that's working in a warehouse, I'm never going to get successful. Well, that's not true. It depends on how you want to live your life. And the problem is we have this disposable society where if I don't get the new iPhone tomorrow, I'm going to blow up. If I don't get that new thing, I'm going to blow up. People don't even fix shit anymore. They just throw it away and buy something new. So the mentality of these books and this self-help stuff that we went through and all this reading of how these things can change your life, basically it was the same answer in every single fucking book. And it was pretty simple. Have a good attitude. Don't give up. Work hard. You'll be successful.
Right.
The same shit was in every book. I could have, if I wanted to, and what I should have done at the time, which I didn't do, was to cover the front of the book was just a piece of paper or something, and just say, and you'd find. But we found at the end of it, didn't really have to do
like
that.
Like a Pepsi taste test with the books.
But we really didn't have to do that at the end. We found every book was bloody the same. I even said, but I also know some of the motivational guys are absolutely full of shit. I remember going to a meeting one time and this guy saying, yeah, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. By the way, I was a rocket scientist at one point. I'm like, the fuck? I actually looked the guy up and this guy was so full of crap.
Yeah, that's why he's there.
And he's in the crowd going, oh, he was a rocket scientist? Oh my God. And now he's doing, this is incredible. This is blowing my brains out. I'm like, come on, mate. There's also got to be that realization that there's a little bit of bullshit behind some of the motivational crap that's out there.
Right.
But you usually down the line can find the people that you should listen to because they normally are the ones that don't talk about it. They actually do it.
Yeah, well, that's true. Many don't make it that far, or you get caught in a community, in a group that the doing it is just doing more of what you're already doing at a higher. So for example, that person, let's say, read 5 books by Tony Robbins, let's say, or whoever. Then they're going to meet someone who's read 50 books and now not only is they read 50 books, but they also put a course together. And they also went to India for 5 years and they meditated with a monk in wherever. And so all of these things, they give the appearance of results. They give the appearance of enlightenment, but at the end of the day, if you put them in that situation where it requires real resolve, right? That's the ultimate test of whatever model you're working with, is resolve in the real world.
Right.
And in sales and in business, you need resolve.
Right.
You'll know very quickly if that book that you read is making a difference or not. And
but
like
the thing
you said
about
with
that
your
sales though is the communication factor. And the thing is that people just don't know how to fucking communicate these days. Sometimes I introduce somebody, they'll introduce a kid to me and I go, oh, this is Jeff. And he's like, it's in my phone, my personality.
Let's say that's a distraction, but how much of the inability to communicate is a lack of the ability to be authentic?
I agree with you. See, most people that understand real eye-to-eye contact, it's not trying to burn some, try to be a tough guy and burn into the soul of the other guy, but it's actually listening to what the person has to say, thinking about it, then commenting on it and deciding where your vision of that person's attitude is the same as yours. But the thing is that is worrying me more than anything is that people just don't really listen at all anymore. They hear the bits they want to hear, not the bits they should hear. And, it's like the kid saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be famous. At what? I don't give a shit. I just want to be famous. but that's not a concrete idea. And the thing is that, I don't hear stuff like that, except these motivational speakers. But, a lot of the people that I see doing exercise stuff, I like a lot of them because they're a little bit more real when it comes to motivational factor.
When you say exercise, you mean
Well,
fitness?
there's a young lady, I'm not sure what her name is. She does these things on bicycles now, but I give her credit. She's extremely motivating. I don't know her name. And she's extremely motivating because she does this thing. She's on the bicycle and you could tell it's hard work, it's definitely hard work. But she's not running the whole gambit of telling people to get fired up and you can do it. She's just having a lot of fun doing it and realizing that, exercise can be fun and make you feel better about yourself. And it doesn't have to be there just to make sure you look at the right guy on the beach. When I used to box when I was younger, and I'd always see the guys, and the guy that ran the gym in London with me, not with me, he ran the gym, the gym I went to. He was great. He wouldn't allow anybody doing juice or steroids in there at all. And because he said those guys are uncontrollable. They're doing it for a reason that's about vanity. It's not about health. It's just about vanity. And he said, I can't have that in my club. I can't have people that are not here for their health and they're only here for their vanity. He said, he used to say, if you're here for your vanity, go to fucking Playboy magazine. I go, is that for the guys too? Yeah. But the thing about all of that sort of stuff, and when it comes to motivational factors, is you are always looking for somebody that normally will say what they're going to do and then do it. And that's the rarity for me. Yeah. You can talk till the cows come home. And we used to call these people VD people. It's not the venereal disease part. We used to call them verbal diarrhea. They'll come up with all this crap and spew all this shit, but never do anything about it.
Right.
It's great that you can talk the talk, but, that old expression is better you walk the walk,
And that's the ultimate litmus test for me is in order to judge a tree, you have to judge it by the fruit that it bears.
Right.
And if the tree is just saying, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that, yet everything's rotten underneath it, they're projecting a totally different reality than what everyone else can actually see.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about politicians now, right?
There's a whole lot of folks that can fit that category.
Right.
So how does one become, so there's this illusory authenticity that you can get from courses and seminars and blah, blah, blah. And one thing on the self-help, there's this famous Mexican-American businessman, somewhat controversial, Dan Pena. He's quite funny, actually, when it comes to motivation. But his style of motivation is to tell you how full of crap you are. And his line about the motivation industry is that self-help is the biggest scam of all time because they tell you you're getting better, yet there's no performance indicator that you're able to track. You can't actually track yourself getting better. If you believe that you're getting better.
But the simplicity of it is, it is so simple about being successful at any. I mean, Woody Allen used to have that expression, 80% of success is just showing up.
Yeah.
He's fucking right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I mean, people, it doesn't mean that just because you're present doesn't mean you're showing up. Doesn't mean you're actually there. You may be there and you may be physically there, but it doesn't mean you're mentally there.
Certainly the actual advice itself is very easy. It's the packaging of it that they will package it through their system, and their system is the way. It's so funny because when you get caught up in these groups, they don't realize that outside of their little group, the entire world is being successful and have never heard about their technique, about their technology, about their book, and even about their leader. You can get on with your life by doing the simple things that maybe your mom or dad taught you, or maybe your boss taught you, or maybe you read it in a newspaper, or maybe you read it in a novel. It's not that complicated.
But it's funny what you said that about packaging. That was a really, 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 that hit the nail for me because this is an analogy part of it, but years ago I used to go to China to source products all the time for my company at the time. And they would always sit to me, and this is the product, this is the price I can get you. If you get this amount of volume, I can get you a cheaper price, da, 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 da. But then we would talk about packaging. And there are some products, I didn't always sell the most glamorous products in the world, but there are some products I had. By the time we got done with the packaging was more expensive than the product. But that's part of it, though. It's all how people,
perfume.
Yes, perfume. The thing is that if you can put nice curtains on something and make it look a little bit better, there's nothing wrong with that. But if there's no content, there's nothing structurally behind that, then you're just building a wall of shit, nothing that's going to be there to actually for somebody to hold on to. And people want to know that when they do dig the surface long enough and they do actually find those diamonds are real. They're not zirconium. They're actually real diamonds that they dug down deep for. And that's part of the problem with some of the motivational stuff. They'll do everything they say, but they don't get the results they're expecting. But that's also the old Einstein term, doing the same thing in the same way, expecting a different outcome is the definition of being crazy.
Right.
Or insane or whatever. And that's part of it. Again, people are doing the same thing the same way, complaining about it. And that's the biggest thing I got taught when I was a kid. Don't complain.
Mm-hmm.
You're breathing, you're eating, you've got a roof over your head, you've got nothing to complain about. And we'd always go, yeah, like that. But it's true compared to a lot of people in this world. And that's why people are getting frustrated with the migrant situation around the world, because most of the people that are trying to come to these countries are just looking for a better life.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a smattering of shit. There always is. There's a smattering of bad people. There's a smattering. And our problem as countries is we're not actually detecting that properly. We're just saying, let them all in first, then we'll figure it out afterwards. But if we actually did our borders properly, then probably 95% of the people that want to come here would get in. And we'd hopefully find the 5% that are bad for the country and not let them in, so to speak.
Right.
But that's not an investment. Again, people are not investing in the country. They're not investing in the first line of defense, which is what we are as a nation, or who we are as a nation, what makes us tick, what makes us a great country. I mean, Canada is a great country, no question about it. But I think personally, every time I come back to Canada, I think they're losing their identity more and more and more and more and more.
This is true, although I want to keep us on track, and I want to play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say I don't really care, and this podcast does not really care if you're successful or not. This podcast is not a self-help podcast, but there is something in that topic that's very interesting, which is that thread of authenticity.
Right.
And if you're a villain, let's say you do complain all the time. Let's say you're a villain in society, or you're a villain in a novel. You're a villain in a story. You want that villain to come off as authentic. You don't want that to be a facade. A lot of crimes that we see, they're about small, broken people that want to be the villain because they feel, if I'm the villain, then I'll finally get my recognition. Right? And then they do that, and then they become, infamous for a couple days, maybe a couple weeks during a trial, and then they get locked up for the rest of their lives.
Right.
This is obviously that is a horrific byproduct of our society, and I don't want to get into that, but I do want to give credit to, at least if you are complaining. Take Seinfeld. You mentioned Seinfeld. Before we started recording today, we were talking about the show. Seinfeld is full of complainers, but they're all authentic, which makes them actually likable in a weird way.
You're right.
Right. So maybe we wouldn't hire any of them in our companies, right? But we might be friends with them. We might write them into a story, as Larry David did. And so for me, I guess when I meet with people, I don't really care so much about where you're going. Where you're going is up to you and Fortuna and your fate. That's not my business. It's not my business to proselytize and tell you, hey, you really need to start working out 3 times a week and waking up at 6 a.m. I don't give a shit. You're an adult. You do whatever you want. But what I do really appreciate in people is the authenticity. And I would rather a friend that is very authentic, speaking from the heart, and not on a track of success, than someone who is on a track of success, yet they are optimizing every area of their life, where you don't know when you're going to be on the chopping block, because maybe they're just going to recalibrate around you, and all they care about is themselves.
Well, it's funny you said that when you mentioned the film Eli. There's talking about authenticity. Besides the chap that I met here, he was an incredible character that got out of. He was in Bergen-Belsen. They came to his house in summer of '44 in Hungary, and his father disappeared. He went with his mother and his little brother and him right in front of Mengele. Mengele said left, right. His mother and his little brother went one way, he went the other way, and never saw them again. And this guy still talked about his fight to be able to live and to be able to grow and to be able to be a person, And that authenticity is really a strange thing, because the thing is that people are reading so many things or trying to get involved in so many things, but if they get to the end of it and find out that it's not authentic, or it's not real, or the person's been lying to them, or the person's a hypocrite and saying one thing and doing something completely different for themselves, that's what hurts it all. And we've had so much of that in this society, more and more and more, people, I guess, are struggling to find something to make them different, or to separate themselves from the crowd, and they're not just, a lot of people will do that in America. I notice that. Well, what part of America are you from? Well, I'm Irish American. I said, oh, you're born in Ireland then? No, I'm just Irish American. I'm like, but you're American. You were born in America. But it doesn't matter. I understand their perspective. I really do. They're trying to get something to make themselves feel a little bit more authentic,
Right.
a little bit different maybe than everybody else is doing the same thing day after day. But authenticity is a very strong word, and it's so rare these days because at the end of it, you get to this point. And in the film Eli, the fella, the original character, the whole story revolves around the fact that everybody's got some kind of story deep down. Maybe it's a good story, maybe a bad story. The other day, I was noticing your Rubik's Cube there, but I met this kid in London, and he does Rubik's Cube blindfolded. And I didn't ask him about his background. I didn't ask him where he came from. I didn't ask him whether he was, the star of the new gaming magazine. I asked him, can you show me how you do it, mate?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I wanted to know. Not that I didn't believe that he wasn't doing it or anything like that, but when he did it and he did it blindfolded, I'm like, what a skill. I mean, some people may think that's stupid, but maybe it's just a tiny skill that he can do a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. And he just looks at the cube for about, I guess maybe 30 seconds altogether. Like this, puts the blindfold, done in seconds. Incredible, but I think that's a great skill. I don't think it's a bad skill. I think it's a good skill. It's something you could learn from somebody else. And he's authentic. He does what he's supposed to do. And maybe it's not going to change the world. It's not going to make the world a better place. But I do agree with you more than anything. I think authenticity is so far out the window these days. It's just, it's kind of like...
it's hiding... What the issue is, people hide their imperfections.
Yeah.
Social media, you hide your imperfections. Authenticity is about showing your imperfections and continuing to be yourself despite your imperfections.
That's why Botox was invented.
This is true.
I'm not joking, actually.
But you can even take Botox and still be the authentic point is that when somebody asks you if you took Botox, you just say yes.
Right.
Right? That's the authentic part. You're not hiding anything. You're not tucking things away. You're open. And that makes for more trusting friendships. It makes for just higher fidelity conversations. You can be more open. You can connect with, again, with sales. Connecting with people is about being open, right? It's not about lying to them and having some canned line.
When it does come to authenticity, though, it is a rare thing. And when you do find somebody like that you think is authentic or you hope is authentic, and you follow that person or you adhere to that person or you listen to that person, well, I think it's a great thing. But I think it goes back to the old philosophy that used to say when I was a kid, you got 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth. You should be doing twice as much listening and twice as much paying attention than you should be talking.
Right.
And people just don't do that. I need to be heard. I need to be listened to. Someone has to, but most of the time you're never going to learn anything if you're just spewing all your feelings out and not actually paying attention to the facts, which is authenticity.
So what do you do about someone, let's say you're back in your role as a sales manager,
right?
Let's stick to this example and then we can sort of extrapolate to other examples. Let's stick to this example. You have someone you see the potential in them, yet there's a veneer. They have this mask, they have this veil that they can't fully, they're trying to impress you, for example, and they're trying to say the right thing constantly, and they're worried about misstepping on their words. When you and I know that the script is great as a guideline, but the gravity of a single word in a script doesn't matter. You could replace it with anything. Yeah. You could put duct tape over your mouth. You still figure out a way to sell the thing, right? So how do you take someone that is green, that has it inside of them, but they need to break that veneer?
You need to get to know the person, and here's how you do it. The problem with what I find in most sales companies, they have these motivational meetings every day. Come on, get out there, do what you're going to do, sell, 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 sell. And it's the worst fucking thing you can do in the world, because these people, you don't know them. You don't know what motivates them. I've had some people I brought into my office. I threw shit at them, screamed at them, threatened their lives and all the rest of it. They went out and did amazing. I've had other guys come in and say, come on, you can do better. I know you can. Do you want to cuddle? Next day they do amazing. Because I got to know them a little bit about what makes them tick. I would take certain people out to dinner, and the one thing I would never talk about was the business. Zero. Maybe at the very end of the night, I'd say, well, have you got some goals for this year, and what do you want to do, and all of that. But normally I would talk about them or ask them questions about themselves and about their lives and about what's going on. And if you have any educational understanding when it comes to the psychology of human beings, which you should do as a human being, then you'll know, you know what? That's not the kind of guy I can scream at. He was bullied by his dad and treated like shit. I mean, I'll give you a great example of reverse motivation that kicked me in the butt one day. I had some fellow in my office, in one of my offices in Belgium, and we had this campaign we were doing for a large telecommunications company, and everyone was doing shit on it. I mean, everyone could do this fucking thing except one guy. And this guy was doing fantastic, and I don't know what it was or whatever that. So I said, you know, nah, it's time to do my motivational thing. I've got to get this guy in and show what a big man. He's going to be my next fella, right? So I pull this poor fella into an office and I start going off on him. I go, you're amazing. You're fantastic. You're the only guy setting the pace. You're incredible. I could see you as my next manager. And da-da-da-da-da. This guy starts bit by bit as I'm doing my thing. He starts hyperventilating. Until one point he's like, I'm like, mate, are you all right? I could call 999 or 911 or whatever it is, you know. This poor boy, he was trying to get words out. I don't want to be a manager. I don't want the responsibility. Sure enough, I ruined it. The guy ended up quitting 2 weeks later. But it taught me a lesson. I didn't know the guy. Yeah. I sat there trying to do my shtick on him, or whatever you want to call it, you know, and get him all motivated and fired up and all these types of, you know, expressions that you use in the sales world sometimes. And the fact of the matter, it was my own fault. I blew it. It had nothing to do with him. It was completely 100% my fault that I hurt that guy because I didn't get to know him at all.
Right.
And I found that's the best thing when you want to find authenticity in a person. You have to get to know them. Then you know how to motivate them.
So this is really interesting because you've basically just detailed how you break someone else's veneer, how you break someone else's mask in order to build that connection.
Yeah.
What happens if there isn't a Colin Gerrard in the room? How can that person in the mirror at home break it themselves? What do they need to do in order to see themselves? I mean, and I'll preface this by saying this is an incredibly difficult question, one that's basically has been attempted to be answered over millennia by various groups, various religions, various philosophies. The most famous one being, let's say, Gautama Buddha trying to figure out the self, right? Ultimately, like the purest form of authenticity.
I am what I am.
Exactly. Yeah. From a pragmatic point of view, from a practical application, what can someone do? Like, how do you see your blind spot?
Well, you know, I had a manager one time I worked with, and he nailed me pretty quickly. And he did it in a very smart way. He brought me into his office and said, you know what I like about you, Colin? He goes, what? I go, what? He goes, you love to make excuses. And right away, he put me on the back foot. And he knew what he was doing, and I knew what he was doing also, but it didn't matter. I had a part of me that when you tell me I can't do something or I'm not good enough, that motivates the hell out of me. It just does. And you can be as blatant about it as possible. I know what you're doing. I know what you're up to, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to fall for it anyways because I'm like, why does that person think they're better than me? Why does he think he's a better person in his life, in his you know, human existence on this planet, that he gets to be better than me?
So are you saying there needs to be a catalyst for someone to do that?
Well, there needs to be something for you. What's in it for you?
Right.
And that's the thing. And that's what I used to do in interviews. I would tell them what's in it for me. And then I would say, what's in it for you? What are you after? And the thing is that most people don't understand what they really want. And, you know, if you've got a goal in mind, something that you really want, and you should do your best with all your might to not make it monetary. Don't make your goal to be a billionaire. It's the worst fucking thing you can do. The goals of Bill Gates was not to be a billionaire. The goals of Bill Gates was to be the #1 software guy in the world and have the best idea and have everybody know about it, which in turn made him a billionaire. right? You can name all of these guys. It's the idea that counted for them, not the money. It was the idea that they got them motivated about them being authentic about this idea. It's like that girl that did the girl that got busted. She's in jail now, saying she'd invented this blood thing, you know, and she was just so thing about it. But again, there's authenticity for you. Everybody believed in that girl all the way down to the 11 years she's now serving in jail for making up a bullshit thing about Theranos. That's it.
Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes. And
Bad,
that's a shame.
bad blood for
but these
those
people
listening.
all believed in her.
Yeah.
And they thought she was authentic, and she ran around telling everybody how authentic she was.
She is the antithesis of authenticity.
Exactly right.
She's the polar opposite. She does not.
Exactly.
She has not ever sniffed the scent of authenticity.
But it's
in
a
her
shame,
life.
you know. There's also these little people out there that put money into the stock market too. They're not all these huge Wall Street guys, and maybe they got a few extra quid or a few extra dollars or whatever like that, and they're going to put it into something, and that's important for their future. But I remember my stepfather, who's passed now, but he said to me years ago, I remember one time, I guess the shares or whatever, he goes, yeah, Apple's going to come and knock on my coffin, tell me the stock's up finally. You know, and he's right. You know, that little bit of money that he had at the time that he put into that was supposed to be his future. That was supposed to be the authenticity that he was believing in and respecting and investing in, you know. And when that goes down or that goes pear-shaped for people, there's another point. They start losing grasp or losing trust in reality, and also losing trust in society.
So for the sake of argument, let's say someone doesn't have lofty aspirations, doesn't have any aspirations. Let's say
that's okay.
How do they become real with themselves and stop putting up a veneer? There's this one book that I mentioned on the podcast previously by a Japanese writer, Dazai, and he writes characters that have no aspiration. Particularly one character that has no aspirations, is constantly made fun of, is constantly the butt of jokes, and he himself then begins to make himself the butt of jokes. Because that's how he can that's his coping mechanism. He is very, he's struggling, and the only authentic thing he feels is that he's miserable, right? How does someone that is, and that's obviously an example just to bring us back to the other pole,
right?
But how does someone without any major aspiration, someone that maybe is in a moment of struggle, how do they look in the mirror, compare themselves to the version that they want to be, and realize there's a gap between where they are and where they want to be? And let's say authenticity is the bridge that they need to cross to get there, whether it's with, you know, the opposite sex, whether it's, you know, in dating, or it's with the job, or it's with family, or whatever it is. They know that every time they open their mouths, a sort of mask comes out, not the real feeling. They're calibrating their words to suit the other person. They can't be real with themselves. They only ever feel the realness when they go to sleep at night and they say, I wish I said that. I wish I'm more like this. I wish I'm more like that. I wish I had the confidence. How does that person who doesn't have the support around them to make that happen, what's like an initial thing that person can do to take the first step towards authenticity instead of just, you know, appeasing?
Well, I think more than anything, you need a pen and paper, and you need to write down, what is it that you want in your life? What is it that's going to make you happy? Maybe it's just finding the right girl, the right guy, whatever, the right they to get married to. That's what you're after. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, my mate, he's a builder in the UK, and I have such respect for him because he's one of the builders out there that's really noble. He thinks building a house is a pretty cool thing, and it's someone's forever place to live or whatever, or someone's going to purchase their house and it's going to be their family in there. And he thinks that's a hell of a great thing to do. And so do I. And I think we've lost a lot of that. A lot of people have these aspirations and ambitions to be, you know, the biggest pop star or the biggest movie star of this. And we've created that ourselves as a society. Our ambitions and the things that we want to look forward to all seem to evolve either power, money, or fame.
Right.
That's it. Power, money, fame. Those three things are what we've been told or telling our kids a lot of the times. This is what you need to aspire to, instead of saying, how about being a great teacher? You know, how about being a great solicitor? I don't know, lawyer, being a great police officer, a great fire brigade person. How about being a great human being and have friends that you actually spend time with, that you want to spend time with? You have to decide and find the root of what you are after. What kind of, because I mean, happiness is a funny thing, you know. There was a great thing in Ricky Gervais's show called Life After Death. And there's a bit when he's talking about his wife who's passed away. And the girl says, you know, happiness is a great thing. Even if it doesn't happen to you, it's still a great thing. You know, and he said, and there's a line in it that says, and it's from, I've forgotten which the author was, but it says that, you know, I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing, so it's probably not the exact quote, but it's, you know, men will finally realize what life is all about when they plant trees of which the shade they will never see.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing something to actually for the future of other people, because that's what's supposed to happen on the planet. You're supposed to, you know, we all know we're not going to last on this plane forever. So what we do and what we leave behind is super important for the people. But if you don't have a family and you don't have any friends, that's the point when you understand that you don't really care about what you leave behind. It's of no interest to you. Having a child changes your life completely. It puts you into a situation, if, you know, you feel you want to be a good parent, because I believe that a lot of the society's you know, the fact that things are not authentic these days is the parents don't give that authenticity to their children. You know, they're not sometimes aware of what they say to their children and how one line can destroy that poor kid for all of his life. Mm-hmm. You're never any good at that. You've always been fat. You're this and that. And it can destroy a child. I mean, trust me, I know. I've had lines didn't necessarily come from my family, but it came from people when I was a kid that really changed the way I looked at things. So that word authenticity, finding it, is not going to be something you could ever really write down. It's something you have to do. It's something you have to be, you know. But writing down a goal or something that you'd like to have in this life, or some things that, you know, sometimes there's nothing bad about having a good and bad list. These are the things I need to work on in my life. I procrastinate too much, or I don't do this. I don't really text back my friends when my friends are texting me and asking me how I am. I leave it for a week or two. You know, that's disrespectful. And making a little list of things that you need to work on a little bit. And then the other list is going to be a lot smaller. The things that you want and want to be, it should be a lot smaller than the list that you got problems with.
Right. So this is a common thing. It's a not to do list. It's a to stop doing list.
Exactly. And people don't, you know, they'll say to themselves, I need to do this, and never to fucking do anything about it, and wonder why it's still the same 10 years later.
Yeah.
You know, and listen, it's not easy these days because everybody's got, you know, it's not the sort of prearranged life that maybe it was 50 years ago, where, you know, you went to school. You know, they used to call about in the UK, they call it, you know, birth, school, work, death. That's what you have to look forward to. Birth, school, work, death. But the fact is, though, in between, you're supposed to be having a bit of fun with your mates. You're supposed to be having a good time with your family. And it's not like that because it's gotten pulled apart. You know, in the old days, the wife stayed at home, the missus was in the kitchen, you know, and did her thing like that, looked after her man who sat and worked all day and came home and sat and expected his meal on the table at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whatever it is. Well, now that woman wants to have a career of her own. She wants to be somebody. She's got thoughts and aspirations of being authentic and saying, well, I don't want to just adhere to some guy that expects me to have his dinner on the table at 6 o'clock. I want to be something also. I don't mind doing that. I love him. I care for him. He's my man or whatever like that. But at the same time, what about me? And that is the problem. And that's why you see these divorces 10 years later, because they forgot to say, what about me? And that's the key to a person that wants to be successful. You have to ask that question. What about me?
What about me? And that will get you on the path to authenticity, because
I believe
you're being
so.
real.
Very much so. And it could be the smallest of things. I mean, you know, there's that great story about the fellow in 1978. He invented this thing called the pet rock. And it was, I mean, normally if you sat in a meeting and said, I've got this idea, lads. We're going to get a box, stick a couple of holes in it, call it a pet rock, stick a rock in there, put some fake grass in there, put some information about how to care for that rock, and sell it for whatever it was at the time, $5 or something, you know, like that. And everyone at the table will go, are you fucked? That's stupid. Get the fuck out of my, that's the stupidest idea ever. This guy didn't listen to anybody. But he'd done it sometime, I think, in the summertime of that year. By Christmas time, he was a multimillionaire, and the product was dead and gone. by that time, but it didn't matter. It's
Yeah.
maybe a stupid little idea, but those little ideas don't hurt. If you're taking $5 from somebody, unless they're in a situation where $5 is going to change their family, which is in a lot of cases that's true. But if it's sort of a throwaway $5, that person's feelings aren't hurt. They've got a stupid pet rock in the corner and whatever. And the other guy gets to go wherever he wants to go after that.
Yeah, you have to practice it. I think it's like a muscle, this authenticity
That's a great
thing.
expression. Yeah.
And I remember, early on in my 20s, I would, let's say when it came to dating or something, I would, if I was giving a ride to whichever girl, if I was seeing a certain girl, I would give a ride and she'd be in my car. And then I remember reading this article and it was talking about why are you changing the music in your car to suit the person sitting in the car with you, to suit the girl? You're asking her, what music do you like? And then you go to that.
You're fucking great. And that's really good. That's authentic. Because you know what you're doing?
Right.
You're not compromising, which everyone you're amazing. Go, why are you doing that for? Why are you bending over backwards? You're just adapting. And there's a big fucking difference. Those words are not synonymous, compromising and adapting. You're an adapter. And I fucking love that. I do the same thing. I'll ask somebody, do you like that kind of music? Like that? Why is that going to fucking hurt your feelings to make somebody else happy for 20 minutes in your car?
But wait a second. You're giving me props for the wrong thing.
I know.
I'm saying
I thought I'd twist the corner a little bit.
that's what I was doing, which is not a bad thing. It's nice to be like that for sure. But in that moment, I realized when I was reading that article, I was realizing, wait a second. She's coming into my car. Maybe she wants to know what I like to listen to as well.
Also, and that's the right thing to do. But
right?
you also don't want to get yourself where you start to get this sort of like a Mexican standoff, as they used to call it, right? Where you can listen to music. Oh, I don't know. You listen to whatever you want to do. I don't know. And you start to get it starts turning into a really wimpy, disgustingly. Make a fucking decision and tell me what you want to listen to now.
Exactly. Well, I think this goes into the people pleasing category, and not just people pleasing, but validation seeking and approval seeking.
Right.
If you like something, stick by it, and you like it, and that's it. And if it happens that this person's ears are going to bleed, then maybe you can compromise on a different song, or maybe next time you say, hey, you know what? I really love this album. Next time we're going to listen to the album that you like. But it's all about being very confident and secure in what you care about. And it comes down to that list that you were talking about. Write down the things that you care about, or just think about the things that you care about. Think about the things that you won't compromise on. And that's what makes you an interesting person.
Yeah.
For a while, I would be obsessed with self-help books and this and that. And I realized the more self-help books I read, the less of a personality I had.
That is exactly right. I agree with you, because that time I did that experiment with the 5 books, by the time I ended up reading all 5 of them, I'm like, Jesus, why am I wasting my time with this? It's because the thing about success to me is basically 2 words. It's common sense.
Yeah.
That's what success is to me. It's using your common sense that you get. It's like saying you come to the traffic. Why is there a red, amber, and green light? Well, it's common sense.
Common sense is drowned out by all of the people in your life that have either hurt you or authority figures or whatever. And this is nowadays the whole trauma therapy, whatever. But the point is, if you're doing therapy, if you're doing all of these programs, you have to understand it's just a means and it's not the end. For a lot of people, that therapy becomes the end. They obsess over it. It's just a means. It's a tool. Maybe you have a friend that can be that therapist for you, but the vast majority of people who have friends, they're just as fucked up as you are.
Right.
And so they're going to give you interesting refractions, but they're not going to give you a very good reflection. And the refractions take you and put it through their filter, put it through their biases, and give you information. But what you really need is to develop a mirror.
Yeah.
And over time, you develop that muscle where you can be your own mirror. But sometimes you need to go through a process of someone holding a mirror to you, whether it's your boss, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a therapist, but you have to go through that process to eventually start to see yourself. Then I think once you see yourself honestly, truly for the first time, you can then begin to make changes. And
but there's also a bit of that car crash mentality, right?
What's that?
You're standing on the northwest corner, I'm standing on the southwest corner. We see the same car crash, but we see it from different angles, even though it's the same car crash.
Yeah.
And that's
which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing, but that's what really the bottom line of all of this is that, your authenticity as a human being is going to be the actions that you do and not the words that you say. And, that's one of the oldest expressions of the world is, action speaks louder than words. And it's more truer today than any other time ever, I think, in the history of the planet. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to get something done and you want to do something, it's the actions that you do and not the words that you say.
Yes.
And I like those guys. Sometimes there's these guys, I've met people before that, they're very smart. And, somebody said to me, if you get something great sometimes, just shut the fuck up about it. If you find a great relationship or somebody that you love or some great situation, just shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. You don't have to fucking jump on social media and tell the whole fucking planet about the fact that you were able to open a door without tripping over your own fucking shoelaces today. Good for you. But at the end of the day, though, I think that stuff is really great. I mean, those little steps. There's a guy on TikTok right now in the UK, and he's just... I can't even think of the right words. He's I guess you could call him motivational, but he helps people with cerebral palsy and kids that have had accidents or kids that have had brain damage just to be able to walk 2 steps for the day. But he doesn't have kid gloves with it. He's like, come on, get off your fucking, come on, mate. You can fucking do it. What the fuck are you doing sitting in that fucking chair? And, a lot of these kids that have severe mental challenges and severe handicaps laugh too during it because they know, and some of them cry and some of them get upset, but he makes these people feel that their life is fucking incredible for being able to take 2 steps in a row today.
He cares.
2 steps. Yeah. And he's showing that person that even 2 steps can be a great fucking thing. And that's fucking authentic. And that's great because sometimes the smallest achievements can be the greatest, And
I think tough love is better than fake love at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't like your beard, by the way. I think you need to trim that. Is that tough enough for you? One day you'll be able to grow up and have a real manly beard like across the other side of the table.
Wow. So off camera, you compliment the beard. On camera, you disparage it.
And I'm weak as a person.
Very inauthentic. I want to change the
I don't care what anybody says about you. I like you.
Thank you, Colin.
Right.
Are you familiar? You're familiar with Alan Watts, the British philosopher?
Yes, to a certain level, but I haven't really read much of him. But I am familiar with him, but I have not really read much of him.
He passed away, I think, in the 70s or 80s. He didn't treat his body very well. I think he was an alcoholic, but he was this famous professor that taught Eastern teachings, all of the Eastern teachings, all the Eastern religions, philosophies, also very well versed in the Western, but his specialty was Eastern. And he went to California. I think it was San Francisco, LA.
I'm sorry to interject. You just made me think of it. That's the other 3 most important words I ever learned.
What's that?
Which is, you just asked me about Alan Watts, and I said, well, I've heard of him, but I don't know him. The 3 most important words I ever learned was, I don't know.
Yeah.
People are so afraid to fucking say that and say something, oh, Alan Watts, yeah, I know who he is. Yeah. No, I've heard of him, but I don't know who he is. But I don't know are 3 of the most important words you can ever learn.
So there's tacit approval, and then there's tacit agreement, and even preemptive agreement. One of my big pet peeves is people answering and agreeing with me, or people agreeing with my statement.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Before I finish it. Exactly, just like that. Yeah. Because you don't know if I'm going to say, oh yeah, and I love killing innocent women and children. And then you're stuck.
I had a guy do that to me. I was driving in Holland one time, and all the baby lambs, they call them lammetjes there, right? And he had a great punchline. I mean, to people that are offended by this, please don't be offended. It's just about a little bit of meat, but still. So I was going back, oh, look, because I love animals. I'm a huge animal fan. You can't hurt any animals to me. I prefer animals over humans any day of the week. But all these baby lambs running around the field. I went, oh, look at the baby lambs. They're so sweet. He goes, and nice with mint sauce. You fucker.
But you're not a vegan. You're not a vegan.
No, I'm not a big meat guy. I'm just a huge animal fan.
Right.
One of my grandfathers was a vet. And ironically, he never had any pets of his own, but he did teach me about the respect of animals and how great they are. Sorry, and I interrupted you, so let's go back to what you were
thinking about lamb
about.
chops.
Yeah.
With mint sauce.
Disgusting, really. What kind of attitude are you? Little Bo Peep on a plate? That's not very nice, mate. Little Bo Peep is a nice,
I don't know. Which peep?
The Bo Peep.
So Alan Watts was especially interesting to listen to because he was never proselytizing. He's never converting you to Buddhism, Hinduism, Confucius, Taoism, whichever one he was talking about. He's never trying to convert you. He's simply stating the facts, and he's charismatic and entertaining. and you ultimately are enchanted by him and
Right.
start reading and start caring about it. But to me, that is the pinnacle of influence, when you can just say the things as they are without having to sell to someone, which is quite rare in many organized philosophies, religions nowadays, where people are always proselytizing, trying to convince you why they're the best,
Right.
why you should convert. In he was so secure in himself, he didn't give a shit if you converted. If you don't convert, that's even better. That's maybe you have more interesting ideas. He'll be interested in to hear those. So Alan Watts has this has many lectures. One lecture is called "This Is It," and I have this beautiful intro here, or preface, where it begins. I'll just read it because it wouldn't be a Nectar of Time podcast without having a little excerpt here. So bear with me with this excerpt. And I'm curious to sort of get your opinions on it. It's going to take it to a slightly different direction, but that's what a podcast is for. So although written at different times during the past 4 years, the essays here gathered together have a common point of focus: the spiritual or mystical experience and its relation to ordinary material life. Having said this, I'm instantly aware that I have used the wrong words, and yet there are no satisfactory alternatives. Spiritual and mystical suggest something rarefied, otherworldly, and loftily religious, opposed to an ordinary material life which is simply practical and commonplace. The whole point of these essays is to show the fallacy of this opposition, to show that the spiritual is not to be separated from the material, nor the wonderful from the ordinary. We need, above all, to disentangle ourselves from habits of speech and thought which set the two apart, making it impossible for us to see that this, the immediate, everyday, present experience, is it, the entire ultimate point for existence of a universe. But the recognition that the two are one comes to pass in an elusive, though relatively common, state of consciousness which has fascinated me beyond all else since I was 17 years old. I'm neither a preacher nor a reformer, for I like to write and talk about this way of seeing things as one sings in the bathtub or splashes in the sea. There is no mission nor intent to convert, and yet I believe that if this state of consciousness could become more universal, the pretentious nonsense which passes for the serious business of the world would dissolve in laughter. We should see at once that the high ideals for which we are killing and regimenting each other are empty and abstract substitutes for the unheeded miracles that surround us, not only in the obvious wonders of nature, but also in the overwhelmingly uncanny fact of mere existence. Not for one moment do I believe that such an awakening would deprive us of energy or social concern. On the contrary, half the delight of it, though infinity has no halves, is to share it with others. And because the spiritual and the material are inseparable, this means the sharing of life and things as well as insight. But the possibility of this depends entirely upon the presence of the vision which could transform us into the kind of people who can do it, not upon exhortation or appeals to our persistent but constantly uncreative sense of guilt. Yet it would spoil it all if we felt obliged by that same sense to have the vision. I'll just pause there because it goes a little bit further. But when I read this, it sort of reminds me of your views on life, in the sense that, you know, he's asking everyone that if we could just figure this out, we would just dissolve in laughter. Right? That it would, you know, it goes against the serious business of life, the pretentious nonsense, which passes for the serious business of life.
Well, that's kind of,
That's a very Colin Gerrard statement.
I find something funny in everything, and I know that it upsets people sometimes, and I try not to disrespect people. I'm not necessarily an apologist, but sometimes if I've offended somebody, I'll turn to them and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I apologize for that." But it depends upon what you feel or what they feel they're being offended by.
Right.
You know, and that's the problem. And these days, people are taking offense for other people's problems or misdeeds or whatever, but it's got nothing to do with them at all. So why are you offended?
It's not that serious, or as the kids say, it's not that deep.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, as you grow older, you start to realize all these politicians and stuff are really no different than you. They're still politicians. They're still human beings. They just got themselves in a position. But there's this lofty bullshit that goes on, you know, this kind of crap that they build around themselves.
Right.
Like Putin will build a long table, sit at one end of it, and have all a group of generals all sitting at the other end of the table. Why? Is it because he has a bad smell about him? Or is it just because he wants to create this image that he's this omnipotent sort of, you know, guy above everybody else? Trump's been doing it for years. I mean,
Right.
you know.
More pretentious nonsense.
And I think that America has grown. I mean, he's the second person of color in the White House now in the past 20 years. It's great.
So yes, this exactly that. And that's what comedy is, right? Comedy is when you're discussing the serious business, but removing the veil of seriousness and realizing what it actually is. It's just, you know, a bunch of...
There's a really good thing. Sorry to interrupt. There's a really good thing the other day. I watched this interview with a Navy SEAL.
Mm-hmm. Which Navy SEAL?
I can't remember his name or anything. He had the older had a big beard.
Okay.
Wasn't quite as attractive as you and me, but he was a Navy SEAL. Anyway, so he's doing this interview and he's talking about the British SAS, which is sort of the premier, like it or not. No matter what anybody says, people always say their watchword or their example to live by is the SAS. There's no question about it.
SAS is similar to SBS.
SBS is Special Boat Service, Special Air Service. So
but they're the same sort of like
they are the
equivalent to
same.
Navy
Sometimes
SEALs.
you'll go to one, go to the other. I guess people that are a little bit more interested in the water. One of my cousin's mates, he was in that. He was in the SBS, but not. My cousin was I have all my friends in the Commandos. This guy from the Navy SEALs was great, and he was talking about the first time he was kind of a newbie and he got put into I'm not sure whether it was or what
like Hell Week.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like the theater or which theater of war it was, but he was in there and he was kind of, you know, a newbie, so he had to wait and see the other guys. He said, I see these guys go out with the SAS guys and they come back with long beards and bigger, and they look bigger than life. Even though some of the guys were smaller than me, he goes, they look bigger than me, bigger than life. And I hear them talk about these firefights and these stories and all the rest of it. He said, but the British guys were the best. He said, I loved them because despite whatever terrible things could be happening and bullets flying around you and rockets and bombs and people dying, they could always find something to lighten the mood just a bit.
Right.
And he said one of the best bits is they're all standing in the chow line, as they call it, you know, the food line. He looked at all the SAS guys and they all had American flags stuck on their thing. He said, oh, what the fuck is that, man? You got an American flag? He goes, yeah, you got to blame it on somebody, mate.
That's funny.
But he said the key that he loved about these guys and the camaraderie that he felt about these British guys is bullets could be flying all over the place and they're saying, for fuck's sake, you fuckwit, move over there or whatever. And he said his respect didn't lessen. It grew and grew and grew and grew with these guys because of the fact that these guys had a goal, had a mentality, had something to do, but they always understood that human beings are human beings. And
that's another line by Alan Watts where he says, he talks about people taking life seriously as opposed to taking life sincerely. And that's exactly what it is. Sincerity is authenticity. It's understanding what's going on in a lighter way, not in this heavy, fake, pretentious type of way. It's so funny that we draft these emails that are probably the fakest emails, corporate emails, yet people will end it sincerely, or letters sincerely, where it's the most insincere thing you've ever written, and then you end sincerely. So it's this oxymoron of words that it's
But
become.
everyone's got this kind of I've seen some of these people. I've met people before that can be the most calm, understanding, authentic, cool as a cucumber people, but everyone's got some kind of trigger somewhere along the line. I mean, I have a trigger. It's,
of course, that's the human part.
Not that I should spread this all over the place, but I used to fight when I was younger, but my trigger is pulling my hair. I don't know why it is that, But if you pull my hair, you'll be having the most lovely conversation about love and life and beauty and everything. You pull my hair. I broke a guy's jaw once.
Why are they touching your hair?
I don't know. Well, he was joking with me, and he pulled he came over. He was like giving me a headlock like that as a mate, And I guess he turned over and he pulled my hair like that, and I went spare, and I gave him an uppercut and broke his jaw, and I felt terrible afterwards. But it was my little trigger. I don't know what it is, where it come from when I was a little kid or something like that, but I've got this trigger of pulling but everyone's got this little trigger.
Right.
I mean, I've seen it before. I've seen some people with the most, you'll get a lot of religious people, I guess, and people that are sort of the head of their religion, I guess, or whatever you might want to call them, I guess.
There's certain forbidden territory.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you can say just the wrong thing, and they can go from being the most wonderfully lovely person into the fact that they would like to drop a bomb on your head.
Well, yes, that's the human dark element that is probably for a different podcast, but there's definitely...
that's it right there. You said it right there. I mean, like it or not, no matter how lofty people feel, whether it's a politician or a religious person or whatever you think you may be, the fact is you're still a human being.
Yeah.
You haven't changed the DNA of the human race at all. Yeah. The fact is you're still human. You feel like I do. You get upset. You have jealousy. You have envy. You have all sorts of the same emotions that I do. It just depends upon how you can control those emotions that makes you a better man.
Yeah, and I think there's also an argument to be made that those that pretend like they don't have the trigger are just very disciplined in not retaliating or holding back, which is to say they are still feeling the trigger. Do they get merit for holding back? Perhaps they get some social merit for holding back, but does it make them a better person if they're feeling the same feelings inside and just not showing it? To some degree, it makes them inauthentic.
It's a great combination of those two. I know they're mates, I think, in real life, but it's Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and Kevin Hart. I know it sounds really odd, but they're hilarious because Kevin Hart, I love him.
Yeah.
He finds humor in everything. It could be anything and he'll find humor in it.
Right.
Well, The Rock's bit, and they were all doing this chat show one time, and you could tell that The Rock was getting a little bit annoyed with Kevin Hart, but Kevin Hart didn't give up. He kept going, until finally you could see The Rock got his photo saying, so he at one point he's talking about the fact that the interviewer, I think it was the girl, what's her name, has now been blocked out of society.
Megyn Kelly?
No, the interviewer, she had her own chat show during the day all the time, blonde hair, comedian, I can't remember her name, Ellen.
Oh, Ellen DeGeneres,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So they were on her show. I guess she was asking the questions, but she was a little bit out of her element because these guys were at each other, right? And so at one point, Kevin Hart goes, he says, The Rock says, I just had another baby girl. And she says, oh, congratulations. Kevin Hart says, all that man, can't produce any boys, all that man. Like that. And you could see Dwayne Johnson just getting a little bit annoyed, but not to the point where he wanted to crush him. He turned around and he goes, well, wait till Kevin finds out the father of his boy.
That's funny. Well, they'll wait till the cameras are off.
But what was brilliant about that, though, you could tell that he was a bit annoyed, but he still went in with it, and that's his mate, I guess. And, and obviously, one guy's 6'2" and huge, the other guy's 5'2" and tiny, but still.
I don't think it's going to take a lot to some guys pumping himself with steroids and whatever. There's going to be some soft sore spots there.
He did say one thing in a movie one time. I think it's the same movie, actually, the thing it's called. And these guys are trying to bully him at a bar or something like that. And he takes him one drink and he says, I have to tell you one thing before we start. I don't like bullies. And I always loved that line because I always grew up that way too. I got picked on a lot when I was a kid, and I got, I guess marginalized, picked on, whatever. Kids can be, as you used to say, that children are mean and teenagers are cruel. Well, they find ways to pick on you, whatever, as a kid. But either you survive through it or you get stronger from it. That's a fact. You really do. I mean, I guess Nietzsche wasn't completely wrong. I don't think everything that is not going to destroy you is going to make you stronger, but a lot of things definitely do. That's the question. And bullied as a kid made me stronger as a person. It didn't make me weaker. It made me stronger. When I got bullied mercilessly as a child and picked on and beaten up, and that's why I got stuck in the boxing when I was a kid, because I got beaten up. But it didn't matter. I mean, even the fact that I didn't have a dad, you got bullied for that as a kid. It's the oddest thing,
It's all part of the character.
But I agree with you. It's all kind of character development. I think it's all this thing. Well, that child's been bullied. We have to hold him and hug him and give him a special class, and maybe he needs to be called a different pronoun or something to make him feel better about himself. But it's not that.
The truth is that the bullies of course, should stop, especially the more egregious ones. But coming out of it and not being the victim, or being the victim for a certain period of time, and then eventually growing out of that and realizing how that can help shape you and make you stronger, and so on and so forth. But I want to move to sort of the final sort of area.
That's a really good word, by the way. You really hit on something very strong there about people feeling they're the victim all the time. And that's the worst thing in this world. People feel they are victimized all the time, and they put themselves in a corner by saying, I'm the victim, when they're not.
In you know, at a certain level of abstraction, from let's say from a purely intellectual academic perspective, we are victims in a sense, because none of us asked to be here. So if you want to play that, sure, the whole point is that it's not going to avail you anything. It's not going to get you anywhere.
But that's the thing, though. People might feel victimized in their life, but life is a gift, like it or not. But, you know, the fact your chances of being on this planet are so minute and so tiny. It's billions and billions and billions to one. And the fact is, it's the same with us, you know. If you really want to get through it and you go to that guy, we'll keep this short, but I love this guy in the UK now. It's called Brian Cox. He's a...
Brian, he's the physicist, theoretical physicist.
And they asked him a question one time, what is it that really...
Or astrophysicist.
What is it really blows you away about the universe? And he sat there for 1 second. He said, it's the size of it. He said,
say that again?
He said, it's the size of it.
Right.
He said, he just put it down quite quickly. He didn't go too long. He said, in this galaxy, the Milky Way, there's anywhere between 100 and 200 billion stars. On the average galaxy, there's between 200 and 400 billion stars in each galaxy, okay? In the known universe, that's the universe we can see, there are 2 trillion galaxies, okay, with all those stars in them.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that it could be quite incredible, but even if it's just in our universe, or in our galaxy, being alone in this galaxy is an incredible thing. And we don't look at that enough sometimes as human beings. It's a fucking gift that we have. It's a massive gift. It's a chance that is so rare for you to be on this planet breathing that we have such little respect for that sometimes. It blows me away.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that, again, like in any of these conversations, and this is something that I'm noticing more and more with my podcast with Nectar of Time. At any of these conversations, there is a sort of frame, there is a line, there is a border where you have to have the conversation within. Yeah. And the conversation today is within a border of hopefully practical application that people can take home, use it. But let's say we went full philosophical. It's very difficult to know what rules are we playing by.
Yeah, because what about motivating yourself, though? It's not about, a lot of people will spend their time expecting for hoping that dream to come along to motivate you. But it's tough to talk to yourself about it and say, I'm a fucking idiot. I should have gone off my arse. And then why didn't I go to that job? Or why did I do this?
But my point is, whether you're an idiot, you're not an idiot, it doesn't make any difference ultimately at one level of abstraction. At the level of abstraction where we've decided that, we're going to have this conversation under the rules and regulations of base reality, that you're a person on Earth with a mandate to do something useful with your life, because that way you're going to live a better life. And then for progeny, it will ultimately, work out better for them and for posterity, right? To just continue on. But if you don't abide by those rules, right? If you decide, as many philosophers do and lose their minds in the process, the lines become very, very blurred, and it's difficult to continue playing or to continue having these types of conversations. We'd have to go to different arenas. So I think it's very important to, when we're talking about the universe, I love talking about the universe. I love talking about the billions and trillions.
Yeah, so I find it fascinating.
But for a lot of folks, the billions of universes doesn't pay the rent. The billions of universes, or the billions of the billions of galaxies doesn't get the girl, doesn't get the guy.
But it is funny that on this planet that we're on, the only species that charges rent is humans.
That's funny.
Lions don't do it. They don't steal the other lions. They just fight them to get the fuck out of their territory.
If they were as intelligent as us, they probably would. But I want to move to, and this is a really nice segue, because I want to move to Kurt Vonnegut. So I brought a couple books here of Kurt Vonnegut. One is Galapagos, the other is The Sirens of Titan.
I know the books. Have not read either one of them. The only book
You've read
I've
Slaughterhouse, right?
I read Slaughterhouse 5, which I love that book. It was a fantastic book.
Before I mentioned Kurt, you mentioned before we started, there was some...
Oh, one of the best insults ever. Kurt Vonnegut was brilliant at insults, but one of my favorite ones was go take a flying fuck and a rolling donut.
That's actually that. I don't know why, but now I want to eat a donut.
Oh, it's the best. Go take a flying fuck and a rolling donut. I love it. It's just the best.
Kurt,
well, you're in the right country for donuts. Apparently, the Canadians per capita eat more donuts than anybody else in the world.
That's possible. Although the Americans have better donuts. But to stay on track with Kurt, I brought Kurt today.
No, you talked about donuts, mate. Kurt's out the window now. I like donuts.
I know. Well, you brought the donuts.
No, I had something today I'd never had before. They're called, I know we're remembering Kurt Vonnegut. I won't go too off track. They're called Timbits or Timbits.
You've never had Timbits before?
I never had a Timbit before.
How
Timbit
dare you.
is the middle part. I mean,
it's a donut hole.
The Canadians are very smart, incredible people because they don't waste anything. They've taken the whole of the donut and made something else out of it. You get 10 in a packet for $3.19. By the time I'd walked to my brother's house, I'd eaten all 10 of them, and I felt ashamed of myself, but also quite pleased.
Well,
that I ate a donut that looked like a...
I really want to eat a donut, but it's Passover right now for a few more days.
But I'll get you a donut.
Give me a free...
What would you like?
I need a free pass.
Would you like a Biscoff donut?
I'll take any of them.
Do you know where the term Biscoff comes from?
You
know, Biscoff
biscotti and coffee?
No. Oh, close. You're right. Yes, a biscuit and coffee, yeah.
Yeah.
Biscotti, by the way, the Italian word biscotti basically means biscuit.
Yeah.
It's not, they don't all look like that. It's any kind of biscuit. Those particular ones are called, there's another term for them. They're called cala something or other. I've forgotten the ones that we call biscotti over here. Anyways, Kurt Vonnegut, sorry.
Kurt Vonnegut. I mean, listen, we could talk about
cookies
sweets
all day. You got my number if you talk about biscuits and pastries and...
Something about Kurt. So when it comes to authenticity, which is what the topic was for a podcast today, we, what I'm trying to do is always tie in novels, authors, interesting references that I can bring in.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it feels like there's no one better that encompasses authenticity than Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut, both as a human in his own life, but if you see his talks, if you see any speeches or seminars, lectures that he gave, he just comes off as so real and so funny and so just such an interesting character. I mean, the guy lived in New York, right? I don't know if he was from New York originally, but a lot of folks from New York, I find, are actually very authentic.
Oh no, he's great at taking the piss. I mean, do you ever see that?
Taking the piss, exactly. This is a very interesting thing, specifically in Canada. You know this as someone from England. Right. Taking the piss is banter, right? Australia,
it used to be called taking the mickey, but we taking the piss is a bit of a taking a mickey.
You have this in many countries. Australia is known for it. Right. England's known for it. A bunch of places are known. Texas, they're quite good at it. Right. New York is quite good at it. Canada, awful. Mm-hmm. People don't banter here. When you talk to them, when you joke with them, they don't really say anything back.
Did you ever see the thing that Kurt Vonnegut did? Bless him. That's what shows what a great guy is. He did a, what does it call it when you do he did a cameo in a film one time.
Oh yeah, he did. That's right.
In Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. And there's a bit where his son is studying in school and his father's very wealthy. So he comes to the school and he basically sets up a whole huge place for his son and all this rest of it. And at one point he says, I don't understand this Kurt Vonnegut. He hires Kurt Vonnegut. He comes to the door and says, hi, I'm Kurt Vonnegut. He goes, what? It's brilliant stuff.
I did hear about that. But his characters in his book are so flawed.
That's why I love the guy.
Yeah.
That's why he has human beings in his books.
He does have human beings, almost to the point where they come off as almost alien in a way, because they're like, well, why are they so, like, why are you telling me this? I don't want to make them a little bit more perfect. Like they're too flawed. But then that grips you, and he brings other characters and shows you the failures that they have and the mistakes that they have and the mistakes that they're so confident. I mean, hubris is a huge theme in a lot of his books,
very
right?
Much so.
And
in the book I read anyways, I know some bits of the stories of the other ones, but not.
I mean, if you love Slaughterhouse 5, you love his other books. These are in particular like my favorite of his, although there's still quite a few that I haven't read. Right. And so what this all shows me is that, if you want to make an impact on someone, if you want to not be an NPC, as they call it, a non-playing character.
Right.
You have to have something unique, and your uniqueness is a composition of your talents, your special skills, and your special mistakes and imperfections. It's all of the above. If someone is just fully talented, it's almost boring. If someone is fully imperfect, which I'd argue that doesn't really exist, and both of those don't really exist.
Right.
These two polarities are not interesting. It's interesting when you have your own thumbprint of your mistakes, your talents, your attributes. But when you hide that, that becomes a problem. It becomes a problem in your relationship. It becomes a problem in your career. It becomes a problem when you're making friends. No one's going to write a story about you. It's not interesting.
But don't you love that part? The one part about is back to the theme of being authentic is as I'm getting older, bit by bit by bit, I'm starting to learn more about myself that I already knew, but I didn't admit.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew certain parts of my character. I knew why I did certain things, but I never admitted it to myself. And now starting to admit it to myself, I'm not falling over from it. I'm just accepting it, which is even better. And I'm embracing it too, because not all of your idiosyncrasies or bad things that you think are bad parts of you are bad. They can be fantastic sometimes depending upon how you harness those feelings or harness those qualities or bad qualities or whatever. You can harness things in a great area sometimes and make yourself a much better person. And it's not that, I mean, for want of a better term, I just want to be a better guy, a better person for myself. I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm not talking about whether the person next to me or that I'm talking to that day is going to be better because I spent time with them. What I'm trying to say is what I see it definitely in Slaughterhouse 5-2 is how he was not having any friends, but learned how to make friends in a sense during the story, even though it's a terrible bombing of Dresden and all the things that happened in there. But still, at the same time, that's kind of a cool thing for me now. And I actually kind of realized it literally the other day. I was thinking about something about my character, and I've learned how to start talking to myself a little bit. I used to think only mentally crazy, out to the woods guys. And now I actually talk to myself about stuff and I reason with myself sometimes about that. Is that a good thing for you, Colin? Or should you be doing that? Or is that the right path? Or is that guy really a friend? Or is the fact that they never text you back at all after you text them 10 times and they just body ignore you, that's not really a friend? Maybe that's a bit of toxicity. Do I need to unload that out of my life or try to find a way to fix it? And that's what's really been great for me lately, to be honest, when you come down to this point of being authentic, as I'm trying to learn how to be an authentic person for myself, not for anybody else, and not for I had a guy in my business once in time, and he had the worst things happen to him all the time. Always just had the worst luck, I guess you could call it, right? And one day he came into work and I just thought I'd give him a bit of a compliment. He had, nice shirt, looked really crisp, and he had a tie on. And I said, "Why, Isaac, you look great today." He goes, "I didn't fucking do it for you, did I? I was his fucking boss," and that's what he said to me. But still, he did. "I didn't fucking do it for you. I did it for myself." I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really loved it. He got up in the morning, ironed his shirt, made himself look great for him and not for anybody else. Yeah. If anybody else thought it was great, that's a bonus. Fantastic. But I loved that. And that to me was authenticity from that young guy in my business who just said, "I didn't fucking do it for you, Colin. I did it for myself." And I loved it. And to this day, I've mentioned that 20, 25 years later to people, or 20 years later, about that's being authentic, saying that's right for me. That's what I want to be.
Do it for yourself. I think I think that's the best way to encapsulate authenticity is do it for yourself, say it for yourself, act like it for yourself.
And you don't have to piss anybody off along the way. Just do your own fucking thing. And like I said, we were talking about before, when you find something great, just shut the fuck up. Just go and do it. Let your values, your actions, and what you're doing speak for itself. Right. You don't have to speak for it. It should be able to speak for itself. I mean, I would love that. I'm doing music now again. I would love it that I would send some music and they would just fall over backwards and go, "You're the second coming and we need to have you now. Here's the $50 million, sign the contract immediately." But it's now become more of a process than anything. Bit by bit by bit, I'm getting them to like me.
Yeah.
Bit by bit by bit. And, unfortunately, those industries are based around money. That's all there is to it. Most people, if they want to, I remember hearing these two guys in Los Angeles, so I'm not trying to veer off the path too quickly, but I heard these two guys in Soho House over talking, give me $1 million, I'll give you a fucking #1 single. He's right, though. You can buy a #1 single any day you want.
Speaking of #1 single, Colin is also, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, a musician. So, Colin, where can people find you for following your music?
Well, being in Vancouver at the moment, I tend to be along East Hastings during the evening time. If you just approach me on the corner 6, I could probably accommodate you. But besides that, if you want to find me, I'm on Spotify, etc., under Col Gerrard, COL, and then Gerard, GERRARD. Or Gerard, as you say here.
Hastings is the Rodeo Drive of Vancouver.
Absolutely, particularly East Hastings, and the people are very friendly there.
That's right.
And very nice and very kind and very giving and wanting at the
Colin,
same time.
Thanks for coming on my show. Is there anything that you want to leave people with, or you want to?
No, it's a pleasure. I will tell you, I was, before we did this today, I watched a bunch of podcasts in the middle of the night last night to see what the sort of comparison would be, or what it is, or what's going on. People like Joe Rogan and those types of guys who's very successful at the moment. You'll do great because you're very good at getting the best out of people. And to me, that's the epitome of a great podcast. So that's the best thing I can tell you right now is that if you want to do a podcast, I'd come down to Yaletown Podcasts, 896 Canby or 396. Which number is it?
896 Canby.
896 Canby.
That's okay. They'll find us.
No. I'm helping. And there will be a free cup of tea that tastes kind of like dishwater, but they really do care. No, it's been great. You're a great person to talk to because you see a lot more than what's on the surface, and that I appreciate.
Well, that's what Nectar of Time is about. So,
okay. And I don't care what anybody says about you. You know I like it.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.